Back once again, folks, from Evanston, Illinois, fresh off another Indiana road victory. It's their third straight this year. Hoosiers prevail 67-59. I'm Jimmy Cavanaugh, joined by Michael Felish for the IUSC post game. Mike, first things first, Cody Zeller had himself a really solid game today, 21 and 13. He didn't seem particularly impressed by those numbers, but Northwestern had to be. He had himself a really solid offensive contest.
It's definitely a good thing to kind of play through the ball through Cody Zeller. I think that's something Indiana did throughout the game. You saw Cody Zeller, a lot of his baskets were obviously in the paint. I think he was pretty strong going up, and he was able to collect a lot of fouls for Northwestern, which helped out Indiana a lot. So great performance tonight from Cody Zeller.
Bill Carmody actually mentioned that as one of the big factors in the first half. IU outscored Northwestern in that first period, 31-17. Wildcats turned things around offensively, and we'll get to that in a bit. But Northwestern also played some good defense. A 1-3-1 press got IU out of their rhythm. It sped them up. Talk about what we saw from Northwestern to throw off IU and claw their way back into the game.
Yeah, definitely 1-3-1 is Northwestern's trademark defense. And Jordan Holes commented during the press conference saying that it was tough to kind of break through at times, and it's difficult to kind of reenact that defense through practice from the Hoosiers practice squad. So definitely the first time they really see that 1-3-1 is on the court here in Assembly Hall, or excuse me, in Welsh Rhine Arena. But the good thing for the Hoosiers was it seemed like they were inside Assembly Hall because they did have a lot of Indiana fans in attendance.
I was going to say, Mike, it's easy to make that mistake because this was basically Assembly Hall North today. This place seats roughly 8,000 people. Attendance was listed at 8117. Probably 5,000 of those people were IU fans, and they made it sound like a home environment today. That didn't make much difference, though, in the second half, because Northwestern did manage to claw back 42 points in the second half, Mike. 50% shooting from the floor after 30% in the first. What did Northwestern do differently?
Well, you definitely looked at how they executed their offense, really spreading the ball around. Sobolewski, their point guard, got some more open shots in the second half. I mean, Indiana's defense, this is probably their second, third straight game where they come out a little poor out of halftime, especially in the Wisconsin game. You see critiques on Tom Crean about how he can't adjust to the game after halftime, and you saw a little bit of a collapse in the Hoosiers this time. You know, Crean even said it during the post game that Northwestern was 3 plays away from really breaking this game open, and it could have really gone either way at that point. But luckily for Indiana, they talked about in the press conference that free throws were clutch, that they hit their free throws, that they got to the basket, that they executed their game plan to an extent, and Hoosiers were able to escape a victory today on the road.
Hey, you brought up a couple good points right there, Mike. Number one, I want to get back to last season against Nebraska. IU dropped a tough game in Lincoln, and this looked for all the world like it was going to be the same thing. Northwestern was coming back. It was a 5-point game with little time remaining. They cut this deficit way down. IU was really scuffling, and then they managed to hit the baskets they needed to make and proved to be the difference between this year's game against Northwestern, last year's game in Lincoln. That this team would not have been able to lose that game to Nebraska last year because these guys made shots. Last year's team didn't, Mike. Do we see some growth with these guys over what they were last year?
Yeah, we definitely do see some growth. I think Jordan Hulls kind of touched on it before in the press conference, kind of saying that, you know, this year's team would have, you know, did it differently. All I have to say with comparison to last year's Nebraska game to this Northwestern game, both would have been very poor court rushes, in my opinion. Nebraska's not too good. Northwestern student section, I've been coming to these games for years now. Not that impressive. And you want to talk about a court rush, let's talk about Butler just for a little second here. Couldn't full up Hinkle Fieldhouse, that's all I'm going to say. Good game last night, though, in Indy.
Mike Felish giving a shout out to the Butler Bulldogs in the middle of an IU post-game recap. I'm sure there'll be some fans that are displeased about that, but no offense meant, everybody. We'll move on. Good win by Butler, though. I think you're exactly right.
Win.
Getting away from that point, getting back to IU. The other thing that needs to be mentioned here is the fact that IU has struggled to put teams away in the second half. They're being outscored during Big Ten play by an average of 5 to 6 points in the second half of these games. That's an alarming stat, Mike, and one that Tom Crean bristled at being addressed. What do you see from these guys in the second half, and what chances do they have of improving that?
Well, it's definitely a scare to kind of see that they don't have that closer mentality in the second half, kind of coming out of the gates and looking pretty sluggish at some points. Each game they kind of have a different weakness. In this game, they couldn't execute against the 1-3-1. In some games, they struggled, trying to execute the 2-3 zone themselves. So different defensive schemes that they've been struggling with, both offensively and defensively, have been troubles for Indiana this season. But we were talking about it before we even did this. They were able to pull away with a victory, and you can't really take that for granted. And even Coach Crean acknowledged that, it's Northwestern, they're a quality team. Fresh off a victory over Illinois, Indiana, fresh off a loss to Wisconsin. So to be able to come in and still get this victory is pretty big for them.
IU superfan Chronic Hoosier mentioned something on Twitter that needs to be brought up in this space. IU is playing the end of these Big Ten games like a team that finished with the 302nd rated non-conference schedule in the country. Mike, the schedule that IU has had, does this play a role into what we've seen from them, and is this a matter of them clawing out and acclimating to the difficulty of the Big Ten?
Well, you look at their schedule in the non-conference season, they don't have any road games. They do have neutral games in Brooklyn, they have neutral games in Indianapolis, but they come into Iowa City, they go into State College, and now right here into Evanston, and they don't have that kind of experience. I think Cody Zeller was even asked, what kind of atmosphere it was and stuff, and winning on the road, and he says, I can't explain it. You just have to go out and you have to play. So they're still getting used to playing on the road, and welcome to the Big Ten. You're going to play a quality team on the road mostly every time, mostly every game, and it'll be even tougher when they play the Michigan States, the Ohio States, and the other top teams in the league. So,
fortunately for these guys, they're not quite there yet. Next couple games, home contests against Penn State and number 18, Michigan State, gives these guys a chance to continue to get used to Big Ten play. A lot of their tough road games are in the second half. And Mike, too, we'll ask everyone to remember the last year, these guys went through a similar stretch. They get to the beginning of February, lose a tough game against Michigan, and then they win on the road at Purdue, get the rest of their season going, eventually culminating in a Sweet 16. These guys have a lot of basketball left to play. Do we see them getting more comfortable as the schedule wears on?
I think we can, and I think another thing is to kind of see the fan base get a little more comfortable, because you look at last year's team, the team started winning the big games, right? The Evansville game we thought was huge. North Carolina State thought it was big. But then the Kentucky game, and then leads over to the Ohio State game at home in Michigan. So I think the fan base for Indiana, they get so used to all these wins, so I think they have to kind of keep in check that they're playing in this tough conference. They're playing against tough teams, and it's not going to be guaranteed every game. And I think our fan base is great, especially at home. You see on the road here today, so we'll see how it plays out.
Certainly seems like a good a place as any to leave off. From Welsh Ryan Arena in Evanston, Illinois, for Mike Felish, I'm Jimmy Cavanaugh saying good night. Travel well, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll have another one of these for you right after the Penn State game. Take care.